nice to be here, especially going after your wife. My wife is very difficult to match her act. She mentioned the phrase caregiver, right? Caretaker. I don't understand what it means. What the difference is between caretaker and caregiver. Do I give care to my students? Do I take care from them? In the case of the wife, it's a very difficult situation, right? She's giving you care, she's taking care of you. So how many of you think it's one or the other? It's both, right? So you give care, she gives care, she takes care of you, and if you don't have that kind of person to take care of you, then you're in trouble. And that's what happens when you don't understand the perspective with which you have to appreciate what the person does. For example, when she is doing something like dancing or painting, which I can't do either, I start to think about comparison. And this is one of the problems that we have to live with for Parkinson patients. This is a big problem. You might have a sibling who's normal, who's okay, and he might be having a ball, playing ball outside, and you can't do that because you have deficiencies. So to compare, he's playing, I'm not playing. Right? That's the first thing that you worry about, that ability to compare or to live with others who don't have the problem that you have. I'm sure some of you who have unfortunately had this or experiencing this now may relate to this, saying that this person has got some relatives or friends who are with him who don't appreciate this disease, this condition. In that case, what happens is that they start to they do their own thing. They have the right to do that. But you have to understand that they have the right to do that. You as a patient, you have to understand that your children, your siblings, your children sometimes have the right to play the game that you normally do. Sometimes you forget that, and I've forgotten it many times. I get angry. I've gotten angry with my son, who's a very active person. Does a lot of different things, and I can't do those things. So this is something to remember, that your ability might come in the way of your loving people that you love. So that's one thing. Second is that you have to give allowance for the people who are with you to forget these facts, these things that I mentioned as caregiving versus caretaking. If you don't, then you're sometimes going to have a situation whereby your humanity, your humanness is going to come out. What I mean by that is some humans are liable to compare all the time, right? I'm getting back to the comparison because I think it's a very important dilemma that we all have. We don't have a normal life, I would say, most of the time because of this comparison. So you have to be careful in avoiding this situation. Tell your wife, tell your children, tell them about this situation. It happens more in the case of Parkinson patients, I think, because they have deficiencies that they can't control. And so you should let them speak, you should let them convey to you what's bothering them, and be aware of this and help them in conquering it, is a word to use, and do the best they can under the circumstances. Same thing can be done with your friends also. Friends are even more problematic because they appreciate who you are, what you're going through, and they may cause some friction among old friends that you have to worry about. I'm not going to keep on talking. I'm going to stop here. Ask me any questions. If I have answers, I'll give. Otherwise, I'll give the phone to the mic to her. She'll answer them. Anybody? Yeah. Professors don't normally say, I don't know. But I say, I don't know. My students are here, some of them you can see. So if they won't have any questions, I don't answer the class. feel free. Any questions, okay. And then I'll find out if I know the answer to it.
So, what would be the advice you would give for people with Parkinson's? How to live the life?
How should they?
How they should live? How to live well with Parkinson's?
Yeah. So it's a very good question, because the answer depends on where you are, where you are in your career, in your capabilities, and but I think my advice to people, including myself, sometimes I forget it, is that you should live normally. Okay? So, for example, I have this vague feeling sometimes when I'm walking on the road with my wife, or sometimes with somebody else who's not as forgiving or understanding, that you feel as though they're looking at you in a strange way. Why is this guy doing this? Why is he at 45 degrees angle when he's walking? Why is he bending his hand in a certain way? Because they don't know. They don't know that you're having a condition. They look at you strangely, and you will have to live with that. At least you can stand and talk for some time. You couldn't do this sometime before. Right? So, forget it. If somebody looks at you in the same way, look back at them in the same way. They'll be okay. So, don't worry about it. It's easier said than done. Sometimes your wife, sometimes whoever you're working with, they may have a feeling of, are they looking at me strangely? So, who is this person who's walking strangely with whom somebody is doing well? Because sometimes there's a human condition, right? We all try to compare. Comparison is a dirty word in my dictionary, because you always get into the wrong side of the equation when you compare. I don't think anybody compares and lives very happily every day. So don't compare. Because if you think about it, for every bad thing that you have, there's a great number of good things going through. Remind yourself of that, and live with those good things. There's so much to be thankful for, including your family, but beyond that too. And that's important. Otherwise, you're missing the game. You're losing a great opportunity to be a good human being. If there are any questions, send me a note. I'll give the question to her.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
We have, as doctors, we just see the patients at one point in their lifetime. And as doctors, again, we are taught clinical detachment. So unless we keep reminding ourselves, we run the risk of losing our own empathy.
Right.
So I guess in this kind of scenario, the hardest phase in this whole ordeal is going to be the time in which you deliver this diagnosis of Parkinson's. Because as she was talking, the A's and the C's, they take a lot of time to develop for the caregivers as well as the patient himself or the person with the condition, as you said. So, we generally never kind of understand what's going to happen during this initial phase, wherein everyone, the family and the person himself takes a lot of time to get accustomed to that, the new reality, so to say. So what would be the strategy to go with? This is one very important phase and the need for having this kind of a support group.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this when I was preparing for this. Yeah, going back in life, in time to see how I dealt with some of these situations. I remember my situation very strange. The IIT hospital has a neurologist who comes once a week, and the other days you anticipate his arrival and then talk to him. And he was a very stern guy. He never had this empathy factor. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so I went to him after some time, and I said, I don't think I have anything. I think I drank too much coffee. And I seriously believe that. And he said, oh, I see. Stop. Then he prescribed a whole bunch of tests, 10 days worth of tests. And he said, you come back and all the results are here. I'll tell you what you have. So I was for 10 days on tenterhooks. I was dying halfway through, and he didn't know that. He didn't ask. He didn't want to know that. He didn't care. Then that was to me a terrible. And I don't think even she did. I didn't know what to tell her. But I read a lot about things during the tenterhooks, and that helped. Don't some doctors I was told, I didn't have any doctor. I was told this way that the patients from reading things. No, that is true from the internet. It is true. Just a good thing not to read too much. But as people who are more learned than more educated, I should have more educated than others in this arena, and then there's science to talk about. So we should encourage them to read, but that is the caveat. For every 10 things that they say is bad, there's going to be one more thing that's good, enough for you. If you can identify the one thing which will cure you or make you feel better, then go for it. But you don't know what that is. So the point is that don't tell them don't read. Tell them read, but come back to me to decipher it, to interpret it, and that will give them confidence in you as a doctor, and themselves as somebody who can be part of the process of healing. So, does that answer your question or relate to your question?
Yeah, see, in our case, he was diagnosed. When he was diagnosed, he was just 51. Yeah, like he says, generally, in India, we just don't understand the emotional thing that a person can go through when they find out about anything. So it's not, I think, nice to just say that, oh, you have Parkinson and that's it, So, but one thing nice happened with us all through our struggle with all kinds of emergencies and hospitals. We somehow came across very good doctors who always told us positive things. The doctor that we used to see later on, that he was talking about the very first thing, but then we have seen Dr. Mohit Bhatt for a long time. He would call his condition a garden variety. He said, even today, just before 1.5 years ago, when I met him, he told me that he is good to go till 85. You just keep him active. So I got this, always the doctors would tell me, I don't know why, I always had this feedback from doctors that, he's brilliant and you should make sure that he just keeps doing what he does. And if he does, definitely the progression of his disease will be slower. And that's what we did. We just ignored, most of it. Like we would take that little bit of. He didn't even start dopamine for a long time. The first 2-3 years he was on the Mantril and something else. Yeah, and the doctor would say, just feed him more coffee. It's good for him. And then so he did everything. Actually, he was the most productive. The year that he went through the stem cell transplant, he had 10 papers published, and we didn't let him. But both he had DBS also, but both surgeries happened in the US, and we just kept him out of the loop. And we were completely, the two of us were isolated in Agyatavasa, I used to call it, for 2 years almost. But that is the way we handled it. And I think it worked out for us. I don't know whether it will work out for everybody else, but we just did it totally, because there's no point in telling, he had older, his parents were around, and then you had so much, tension when the family. So if you start telling everybody around you, I think you get a lot of opinions and a lot of people, they think that they are helping you, but they are actually making you feel even worse. So our usual strategy is, you don't have to share everything with everybody. But PD, whenever the symptoms started getting a little bit worse, he went and talked to the head of the department. He was a dean, R&D, that 3 years. But nobody cared. Nobody knew he had any condition. And so he did, I think he did his max with the disease, and that has helped him in bringing the symptoms down, or his psychologically, I think he feels very up. And finally, what the heart, what you feel is what your body does, according to me. And so you keep your, spirits high, and you say that I can do this, I live one day at a time and live it to the fullest. You will keep going till whatever time. So in a way, I really wish sometimes, we don't have to look at all the things. It bothers me sometimes even too when you show things about what conditions can happen, how things can. I really don't want to listen to it sometimes, because I want to feel positive. I want to think that this may not happen to us at all. And if I keep thinking that, maybe it will come true too. So, thank you.
Being positive. Be surrounded by positive people. No, keep away people who don't think positively. I think this is a hard statement to make, but some people think that they are being very helpful. Tell you, I once heard a friend of mine come in, and he had brought his parents over. My parents were talking to his parents, and they were talking about how their uncle's father-in-law had this disease, suffered for 6 months, and they kept on going forever. I got mad. I told him, I can do this without this. Please take your parents away. Told my friend that. And then he was also mad at me. That's okay. Be positive. Be surrounded by positive.
The same thing with that internet, the reading stuff.
I have a small question about that I wanted to ask. I want a very personal question. See, when all of us, we tend to read a lot about the stuff we have. So you read a lot of it, and there will be misinformation, information, positives and the negatives. But then we always have something called a cognitive bias. We like to pick what we know.
Yeah.
So even if you read equal amounts of the bad and the good stuff, right, the positive and the negative stuff, if you read it, did your cognitive bias really help you as a person to take out more positives than the negative? So in general, be on the green than on the red.
I think it's possible, but my guess is it's not a universal cure or universal happening for everyone, because it depends how you've been brought up, how your surroundings have been shaping you and your thinking. Not everybody can think positive all the time, but it definitely helps to have reinforcement of that. Once you have the situation where you have to think positive, and you can't for whatever reason, tell your mother, tell your elder brother or sister that you want some positive vibes. If they're with you, which most people should have going through for them, they'll help you. And I told my students, I didn't tell my faculty colleagues, but I don't know how they react, but my students react very positively. They understood when I needed some help. So somebody said, can I give you a 5-minute break to go? So think about it. So that helped a lot. I found them to be much more supportive of me than people older than me. So I think it should be taken with a not a grain of salt, but to understand that they are also humans. Sometimes they may react when they have come from home with something happening there which is not very positive. You reinforce that with your negative condition, that is not good. So I think all of these are highly conditional on some situations that take place in one's life. We should take it too seriously. But the point is, they don't have to be all taken away. You can filter out some things. You can make others filter for you, and should be better than being able to agree with somebody all the time.
Yeah, Kruti has written a lot of blogs. So it's called 4321 Life. So you can read those, and I think that has a lot of who he is. And so the one thing about reading on the internet about everything, I don't do that, and I never read the negative effects of anything. So all the side effects that for anything you would have, for any medication you would have side effects, right? So if you only focus on that, we wouldn't have come through that stem cell transplant thing at all, because I have signed in all kinds of papers for everything. So, but I always thought that why you put yourself in the 70% who don't survive, I'll put myself in the 30%. So you don't look at the negative, because that definitely has a negative impact. So that's the reason that we don't want to look at what can happen to you as a disease progresses. I would rather think about what can happen today, tomorrow. So I think that's a good attitude to have, because none of us have control over anything that's going to happen to us in the future, right? So.
I think we've taken a lot of your time. Thank you very much for staying.
Thank you very much.